Hello, this is Greg Allison with Green Greg's coming to you on the 27th of February 2021. Time on deck 4,200 hours Central Standard Time. And I bring with you today my good long-term friend Ed Kiker. Ed Kiker is a geologist. And Ed Kiker and I go way back from April of 1981. And what he's shown in his...
The sun was invented.
Yeah, in his background, we see an aurora borealis, and we can go into that in a second. So the question today, the big question today that we're going to talk about is our planet heading for snowball Earth? Is snowball Earth coming? And what is snowball Earth? I'm not talking, a lot of people talk about a grand solar minimum. They talk about it getting a little cooler. They're talking about, like, you know, we had a little ice age. Some people are talking about potential of the ice age reinitiating or us coming out of this interglacial period. We're in an quaternary ice age. In case you don't know it, we actually are, geologically speaking, in an ice age. But when you look at some long-term trend data, it's just possible that we might be heading into an actual snowball Earth. Snowball Earth is the whole planet to the equator freezes over. Now, I know this goes against everything you've been hearing. It goes against all the traditional wisdom. But just entertain them, and it's a possibility just based on long-term trends. There may be bigger drivers in the things that people are so worried about right now, the CO2. There must be some other big driver that's causing some big changes over the last 65 million years. Temperatures have been dropping steadily for 65 million years. I'm going to go over all that. And so I thought it'd be fun to get a geologist in on this discussion, one who I met in a place that was very much kind of like a snowball Earth. I met Ed Kiker in April 1981. Where at, Ed?
Fort Greely, Alaska, and I sure do miss it.
Fort Greely, Alaska. And Ed was the post-environmental officer when I met him. Is that right?
That's right.
And you've also served as a senior scientist where?
Well, several different things. One is at the Smithsonian Institution. I got my geology education at Harvard University, paid for by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. I've also worked as a NASA space architect, designing lunar structures on the moon, or structures on the moon for the astronauts. But my main interest has always been historical geology, that is, how things have been in the past and therefore how they may be in the future. You may have seen some articles about the Earth going through perhaps the same part of the galaxy from time to time, so that we get meteorites or asteroids or something like that of a periodic nature. Well, the snowball Earth appears to have been or had a periodic nature. And we're in the beginning of studying right now of, well, is there a periodicity? And if so, what is that periodicity? And if so, how can we describe it and therefore prepare for it? Okay.
Now for the viewers, I got a bit of a speaker problem. I'm hoping the audio for Ed is not just coming through my speakers to my microphone that I'm recording on. I hope Zoom is giving some of this. If not, it's going to be, I'll have to apologize. The speaker problem just started yesterday, so the audio may not be clear. It's real bad. We'll have Ed back on here. We might do a redo. But
it's on my side.
Yeah, okay, but my speakers are having a problem here. Okay. And I'll have to see how this is recorded. But by the way, guys, I'm always bringing a lot of videos on this channel about information to keep your eyes wide open and head on a swivel, because things are coming at us and we need to be aware to prepare. And you need to get yourself prepared and your family for the worst of times. And times might be a little more interesting than we had been thinking about here. But I do have concepts that I've been working on that would help get us through some of the worst of times, and maybe even including this. But by the way, I do have a special right now. Go to prepwithgreg.com. On prepwithgreg.com, you can get food that lasts you 25 years. At 25 years, this stuff can really help you take care of yourselves. But you can get either a 4-week supply, which the deal for that is a little better than 20% off, or you can get, there's two of them, or you can get one of them under a 2-week supply. And in that case, it's a little under 20%. But they're great deals, breakfast, lunch, and dinner that can last you and make you a winner, 2,000 calories a day. So go to prepwithgreg.com, and that's an awesome thing, because even if you are gardening and getting yourself ready, This will help you stay over and maintain yourself should you have bad crops and other things like that. And it's good for bugging out too, especially since you get these little pouches in here you can throw in your backpack or whatever. So it's a great deal. It's a lot better than canned stuff for bugging out. But you can go with get a lot of other prepping supplies on prepwithgreg.com. And again, do subscribe, bang the notification bell, and subscribe to my channel. So let's get back to this.
Greg, I'd like to interject for people who may need to bug out anyone who is in a tornado zone, like we are right here in Alabama.
Yeah, amen to that.
In a bug out zone. So you should have something you can throw in the car fast and take with you if you have to leave.
Amen. And these are good for that. Right. So thank you, Ed. And Ed, when we lived in Alaska, I think the whole 2 years I was up there, I probably only heard thunder 3 times. So living in tornado territory is a very different experience, right?
Right. It surely is.
All right. So I'm going to go back and share. Well, one thing, Ed's also been with me on many other things. I have chaired a few small conferences, but 3 major conferences, and Ed was a big factor in each one. The 1993 International Space Development Conference I chaired in Huntsville. Ed ran an entire track for 4.5 days in that event. And Ed was also a primary person helping with this Power Grid Defense conferences. We had 2 of these. Mm-hmm. And Ed, in fact, designed this speaker podium plaque here, that logo. Ed also produced for me this these Space Force pins and patches. Ed didn't design these, of course, but Ed did design this one, I do believe.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
And many other patches that we've used. Ed's a good designer and artist for those kind of things. Mm-hmm. And Ed's spent a lot of time with the military and in the military, working for the military, but he's a geologist and has a long-term interest in these long-term things. So I'm going to show some charts here. We're going to go to some charts here to look at. And here is the basis for what we're talking about, Ed. Let me see if I can expand this a little bit.
There we go.
But look at this. So we are in this quaternary glacial ice age right here, right now. And I will show you some more on this. There have been other ice ages in the past. This one was perhaps not as deep, and it's showing a lighter blue, and the temperature didn't drop as cold.
If you'll explain what the letters across the bottom are.
Okay. We got millions of years ago, and this is going backwards in time. Ed, you want to Cretaceous, Jurassic, Triassic,
Permian, Carboniferous, Devonian, Silurian, Ordovician, and Cambrian.
All right.
It's going back to the beginning of major life on Earth.
Yeah. So, Ed, I believe at this point we were at snowball Earth. Is that correct?
That's right. Mm-hmm.
Look how cold it was.
At the end of the Ordovician.
This is the Earth planet freezes over. Mm-hmm. Is that right, Ed?
Pretty much.
All right. So
the poles were much bigger than they are now.
Yeah. So I'm talking to a geologist here. So now they're back here. There was a bigger one freeze than that even. So yes, we've gone through these. But here's what interests me in this whole trend. You see kind of a bounce here, and then you see a sudden, a tenuous drop off in average. This black line is the long-term average, and it's a steady drop. Now, a lot of people talk about it being a hot 50 million years ago and how there were alligators at the polar regions of the Earth 50 million years ago. That's this little spike right here.
Well, remember too, though, that the crustal plates of the Earth moved over time.
Right.
So what is at the pole right now wasn't necessarily at the pole before.
Okay. So let's go back here, Ed. Mm-hmm. This period was much hotter.
That's right.
And that's
at the high point in the Cretaceous, okay?
Right.
When we're talking Cretaceous, we're talking big dinosaurs, big bad with guys with big bad teeth. And at the end of that, it drops off very quickly. You can see when it drops right there.
This is about 65 million years ago. This is about when the big comet hit Earth.
That's when the big asteroid hit the Earth. It hit what is now the Yucatan Peninsula of Mexico.
Right. So we've been dropping in temperature ever since then. Mm-hmm. Now, these were hot periods, were also somewhat cyclic, although it looks like we missed one here. Mm-hmm. Maybe that was supposed to be in the peak and something else must have mitigated that from developing. But there's kind of a periodicity here in hot, there's periodicities in cold, but this is quite a drop off here, and it just keeps going, even in a sense more than this one. This was steep, but it recovered. But there's just something going on here, Ed, and it leaves me begging the question, where are we heading? Now they're showing it kind of leveling down, but if you look at this, that's pretty steep right there.
Yep. Where
are we heading, Ed? Or we're going to show some other charts here. I mean, there's a lot of people talking about temperature increases and global warming and all kind of stuff, but those are little bitty factors in the environment, really, compared to this.
That's right.
So what in the world is happening, Ed? Is there a chance that we could be heading to snowball Earth?
Perhaps, but we don't know yet. But it's one of those things where we're just going to have to find out, I'm afraid. I know that's not what you want to hear. I'd say, yes, at 12:30 p.m., 4 days from now, we're going to hit the snowball.
Oh, no, I know that ain't right.
But you can see just from that chart, it's pretty plain the way it's been dropping off.
Well, I hope the answer is no, we're not heading that way. And I know a lot of people are going to jump on it. Oh, Greg, got car stuff, global warming, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. But there may be bigger drivers at play, and our little human effects may not swamp those out. They may overpower it. Because something big is driving the overall downward trend here. That's huge. That is huge. It's over a long period of time. But usually when we see temperature charts, they're just showing stuff over the last few thousand years. So I find this interesting. So let me close this picture here, and we'll go back to the this is a quaternary glaciation, and that's what this article came out of. Quaternary glaciation, and quaternary glaciation, also known as the Pleistocene glaciation. And so, see, a lot of people don't realize that we're actually considered to be in an ice age. A lot, so here it says the quaternary period began 2.58 million years ago and is ongoing. This says we're still in an ice age.
Right.
And we're in an interglacial period presently of this ice age. So a lot of people just lose sight of that. So here's the charts from the Vostok ice core samples, and it shows where we're at. We're in this glacier. There have been higher temperature peaks in the past. And of course, some of the CO2 charts also show the same period and say where our CO2 levels are higher, but the temperatures here were actually peaked higher than what we're seeing here. So there must be a lot of other drivers, Ed, including maybe dust.
Notice how similar each one of these charts is.
Yeah.
One follows the other. Each one is a mirror of the others.
Yeah. Now this one's CO2, that's temperature, but what's kind of coincident with the cold periods is dust.
That's right.
Dust. Now, this could be from volcanoes, asteroids.
Partly it's volcanoes, but mainly it's from glaciers, because glaciers have a lot of rock in them. They grind together. That creates lots and lots of dust.
Really?
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh.
Grinds it to powder.
Wow. So grinding rocks is creating that kind of dust?
That's what glaciers do. You betcha.
Wow. I knew they ground rocks, but I didn't think about that as contributing to atmospheric dust. That's why I got a geologist here, my friends, tonight. Wow.
Well, if you go up onto a glacier and take a look, you'll find the surface real dirty.
You know what?
Because that glacial dust gets picked up and just spread right over the top of the ice. And since it's darker than the ice, it warms up when the sun hits it, and that causes more melting.
Wow. Well, you know what? There's evidence that supports you here, guys. Look, the temperature drops before the dust picks up. So if the dust was the cause of the temperature drop, the dust would be over here, but the dust is over here. The dust would reinforce probably, though, the warm cooling effect. So it would probably be blocking sunlight. I don't know, Ed. So, but here's another thing to note, Ed. Look at the depths of these ice ages. It's getting worse.
Dust concentration at the bottom. See how it comes just before the carbon dioxide and the temperature. Comes before the temperature. So the dust comes first, and that begins to warm things up. So
the cooling comes, the dust comes, and then the CO2 starts to kick back up.
The carbon dioxide and temperature pretty much mirror each other, but the dust is a little bit before each of those events. You can see that in every case comes just before the carbon dioxide and temperature go up.
Well, maybe the dust is blocking plant growth. Blocking a plant growth is increasing CO2. I don't know. But look at this, Ed. There's a trend.
Helping ice melt.
Wow. Okay, look at this, Ed. There's a trend here in the decrease in temperatures and severity of each of these ice ages. This is much longer, even. There's they're getting longer and deeper each time, Ed.
Yeah.
Look at that. Each time they're getting longer and deeper, especially right here at the end of this one. I mean, this one didn't start out so bad, but it ended up, of course, we think right about here, this last little spot was due to the younger dry ice, which probably was due to the impact. We believe we had a common impact on the Laurentide ice sheet. This is the Allerod-Bolin period here, that little warming spot, which they thought might have took us out of this. But
well, we think there may have been a meteorite impact also about 13,500 years ago up on the ice sheet.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about here. So in this picture, takes us back into here on this ice age. There's more, people talk about a lot of things, like a lot of potential causes, like precession, changes in our orbit, the Milankovitch cycles, solar forcing, CO2 removal from the growth of mountain ranges like the Himalaya mountain ranges, maybe a forcing factor in the cooling, maybe the Isthmus of Panama shutting off an equatorial ocean current might play a role. There's a lot of discussion about different things playing a role. The sun's actually getting stronger in its heat, and I would suggest the Earth has lost atmosphere at each impact point, and that may be part of the reason we're somewhat cooler. But we're heading down, and it's still heading down, and we've been a long time since that major impact. So why do you think we've been getting cooler for the last 65 million years, Ed? You got any idea? This is all cyclic. I mean, we're on a downward spiral. 65 million years spiral down in temperature. What do you think is the cause of that?
I think it's primarily just where we are in our orbiting around the sun. It's not completely circular. It's kind of oblique. Okay, you're going to be closer and farther away, and I think that's exactly what we're seeing here.
Yeah, I mean, these carbon fluxes these are more recent measures here.
So we haven't been burning fossil fuels for all that long.
So. No, that's true. So now talking of that, this is the satellite data that the University of Alabama Huntsville has been maintaining since December 1978. This goes all the way to January 2021. Doctors John Christie and Dr. Roy Spencer are the principals in this long period of investigation here. And it's Roy, I almost fell back into believing in global warming because, but Dr. Spencer talked me out of it. And, he said, he'll tell you we got a little recent warming experience here, but this is not a lot. This measures out to, see, these are fractions of a degree here in Celsius, guys. So what this measures out to here, as you will see in this report they published, is 0.14 degrees C per decade. Well, you get 10 decades in 100 years, so it's 1.4 degrees C in 100 years if you extrapolate this. And he points out, given the temperature variability we've had over the thousands of years, he tells me that's nothing. He says the temperature randomly goes much hotter, much colder, and that this is kind of in the static noise of temperature variability over the last thousands of years. So he says you really can't draw conclusions from this. And also he says
looking at here is averages.
Yeah. Also, even though we're spiking in CO2, why was it higher there and higher here at temperature? It should be higher over here if the CO2 is a direct causation. Now, CO2 is a greenhouse gas, but there's got to be a lot of other factors involved in just that. And how powerful of a greenhouse gas is it? I've seen reports that dispute that, claiming that it's not linear in terms of the additive effect of warming, that the molecules actually block each other and blocking sun rays. They claim it's not a linear effect. And I know even with glass and greenhouses and other things, there's a lot of other things that's not linear in nature. But so some people look at this and think that this might be our salvation from another ice age, or returning to the ice age state of the quaternary, maybe preserving an interglacial period. But that's not really that powerful a signal. Are we being forced by something stronger into a deeper cooling that don't overcome? That's what I'm worried about here, or concerned about. And this is just an open question. I'm not posing. Don't say Greg Allison said we're going to be snowball Earth. I'm not saying that. I'm just asking a question here. Where are we heading? When you look at this and you see this long-term drop off, that's huge. That's a huge drop over a long period of time. And so there may be bigger forcing functions than what we're putting in the environment. That's all I'm saying. And if so, this could continue. We could go back into not just a grand solar minimum, or just a end of the glaciation and back into a regular glaciation. We may be heading into something far more severe, which, you know, it goes against all the beliefs and the thinking. You know, the sun is continually getting warmer over time. And they say in the future, if you go this far back into the future, this far back, the sun will probably in 500 million years make life on Earth untenable because it'll get too hot. So we may be heading to a solar global warming over a long period of time, which is a good reason to get off Earth and move out to space, perhaps, in terms of long-term prepping, get off the planet. But in the meantime, this don't look good, Ed.
No, it doesn't. But we have shown the ability to adapt to just about anything.
Yeah.
You and I managed to live in Alaska very comfortably.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we did. Loved it up there.
Yep.
Absolutely loved it. So let's see if I can, let me get out of this. That picture, let's swap to another. It doesn't been here. So here we are, we're talking here about dinosaurs leaving Greenland. And the explanation offered in this article was that the CO2 dipped from 4,000 parts per million to 2,000. And they believe that may have played a role during that same time frame. You know, Ed, we're there we are, see, slashed in half to 2,000 parts per million. We're talking about, we just got up to 400 parts per million, see? So this is 10 times more during the Triassic period, right? That's 10 times more CO2 than what we just climbed up to. So some people are saying that the CO2 that we're putting in the atmosphere will end life on Earth. I don't know, Ed. Even if we do get to global warming, I think we've been there before. I don't know. Maybe you got to be a dinosaur to be comfortable. I know I would not be comfortable with the kind of heat they had back then, but it doesn't mean it's the end of life on Earth.
Well, one thing that does happen to us, though, we are constantly using up resources.
Right.
And at some point, we're going to have to go elsewhere for resources. That's why my subject area when I was in college was mining the moon.
Right.
And I got to go to the United Nations in Vienna, talking about mining the moon in front of, you know, the whole world there, essentially. Mine the moon, mineral resources for our future. Yeah.
So let me, if I talk, it'll show my image because I got this on speaker view. But this is a patch that he designed in that regard, mining the moon. So yeah, Ed's been a very thorough, knowledgeable geologist. When I met him, he was the first person that could explain to me a lot of the geological features in Alaska. And I've been asking everybody tons of questions. All I go, oh, I don't know. But Ed started popping up, you know, chemical analysis of every rock I picked up, mineralogical and chemical analysis, telling me it's this, that, and the other, and the exact name of every mountain I pointed to, the height, the kind of minerals you'd find there, the scientific genus of every tree I pointed to. Any other question I ask anybody else prior to that, I go, oh, I don't know. Oh, gee.
Well, one thing I was supposed to do with my job in the Army at Fort Greely was to go up to where the troops were camping and make sure that they were, you know, low impact. But then in between times, I was walking in amongst the tents, you know, I'd go up by helicopter, same way they got up there. And I'd be walking around picking up pieces of lead sulfide, galena, crystal, and things like that. Because there's all kinds of stuff this world is made out of, and I'm interested in every last scrap of it.
All right. So Ed was also involved in burying the core of the nuclear reactor that was at Fort Greely.
Yeah. I had to provide all of the concrete to fill it full of concrete. We have the SM-1A nuclear reactor. And when the Army was done with it, we buried it. We filled it full of concrete.
And how long is that geological formation supposed to last where y'all put it?
It ought to last. I hope it should last longer than Devil's Tower, Wyoming. When that washes away, SM-1A nuclear reactor will still be there.
All right.
With a guard on it.
All right. So, well, that's good to know. And it was not a big reactor for anyone to know. Now, how did that compare to the nuclear reactor they used at Camp Century, which was the city under the ice in Greenland? I always thought that was a very fascinating Army project. It was like a main base, like a lunar base. And
I heard of it. I really never knew much about that one, though.
Okay. That was a very fascinating base that I ran across that in the library at Fort Greely, Alaska. And that's when I started studying Camp Century. And then now there's some videos on the internet about Camp Century, but and Ed, by the way, who's got the charge for building facilities, all federal facilities?
You mean where?
What about the Army Corps of Engineers? Aren't they charged to be?
That's right. They build buildings or provide the plans or whatever for pretty much all federal facilities.
So should not the Army Corps of Engineers build our moon base?
They may be involved. I know that they would love to be involved. And if the Army is doing anything on the moon, they will be involved.
Yeah, well, the first U.S. moon base design was actually commissioned by the Army. And back then, von Braun, the Missile Defense Agency, the Army Ballistic Missile Agency was actually part of the Army before it split off to be NASA, and they were actually did a moon base study.
That's right. But also when NASA decided it wanted to actually build some structures as if they were on the moon for the astronauts to train on, they came to me to design them and build them. I built them in New Mexico. There
you go. And Ed and I actually developed a space course for the University of Alaska. In they had a rural extension program, so we were actually at one of their extension sites where we taught this course. Is that right, Ed?
Right.
And Ed and I started a chapter of the L5 Society called the North Star L5 Society many years ago.
Well, we'll have to get back there someday, I hope.
Well, we should make a trip up there. I'd like to get a little of that galena because it's getting hard to find that kind of stuff. It's good for melting down and casting into certain objects that are propelled by things that are rather hot. Something that I can't really mention directly on this channel.
I'm familiar with the Space Command and Space Force getting started. I'm hoping the Space Force will come here to Redstone. I know they want to come here too, but as far as setting up a place for doing experiments, Fort Greely be the best place for them. It really
All
would.
right. So one thing that might get us surviving these cold periods, Ed, I'm doing some work right now on this habitat. I mentioned it to you. Maybe I can maybe you can build a diorama for me. Let me show you these. I'm going to show you some charts here in a minute, Ed. Give me a second. I got to pull it up to a certain level. I've got a person working with me on this. That's I hope I didn't just close it down. Hang on, Ed. Give me a minute, guys. I'm going to open this up. I think I just closed it. There we go. So the sharing screens is kind of tricky here on sometimes. So I'm gonna do another screen share. So this is my Venus habitat, mile wide cylinder that would float in the atmosphere, not cylinder, sphere that would float in the atmosphere of Venus. And I'm gonna have terraces, 20 terraces that are 100-foot deep, going around in circles, and a little dish structure inside of this, and another inverted bowl here. And it's going to be divided into little 1/10 of an acre plots with homes in it. It'll look kind of like this sitting inside of that. So that's kind of the notion of it. And so I was telling people we need to colonize Venus first.
Well, we're going to have to start doing some colonization at some point. The Earth human population can only grow just so far before we're too much of an impact on it.
Yeah, well, we got a sweet spot in the atmosphere of Venus where the temperatures and the pressure are the same as on Earth, quite unlike Mars, which is kind of makes Alaska look like a tropical paradise.
No, some pictures are like that.
By comparison, this is kind of a little better picture of it. This is kind of the cutaway view through that bowl. If you looked at it from the outside, this outside would be mirrored, so it looked more like that. Now, it wouldn't be totally transparent though, because you get too much light on Venus. And I did some video, did some charts here showing people that I've done plenty of balloon launches, so I know a few things about balloons.
O'Neill would love to see your Venus sphere.
I bet he would. We met Geological in the old Fairbanks, University of Fairbanks. You and I did. I remember that.
No.
So if you were looking down into it, it might look kind of like that obliquely. So the habitat concept, Ed, I need to get you to build some dioramas for me of this thing. This is a rendering of it that my architect friend did. She's in Tunis. Her name is Afif Beji. She's in Tunis, Tunisia. And let's see, maybe blow this up a little bit and kind of walk through some of these pictures here, Ed. Now, this is a habitat you make a living out of. This could be on Earth. You know, I'm showing it here in the Venus habitat. The reason I'm showing this is that you could actually put this on Earth and you could grow your food in here and it would be something you could live in, even if we had high UV or if the place is freezing, except unless your house is getting swept away by a glacier. But you could probably put this on a sled on top of the glacier and live in it anyway, or in the atmosphere of Earth if you did the balloon type. But this is the house. This is my side drawing of it, and this is her side drawing of it. That's so. You know, this is I had it here being that the lower floor is a growing area open to the sun, but she kind of built this, showed this whole thing being in the basement. I had a workshop area, a living area. You might remember me talking to you, Ed, about this. I was hoping you build me a diorama. Bedroom, kitchens, dining room. Of course, this is a little bit different drawing than what I showed you. A 10-foot road. So this whole thing would be 100 foot deep, and these guys would be about 50 foot wide, except if you're on a slice of a circle, you would be opening up at the back. This is square because this is actually the Earth version. So she's got here a full basement, so you could be growing strictly underground for a good part of it, which would be good for increased UV. Also, light blocks out, glass blocks out a good bit of UV, and the slant on it would block out some more. So you can figure 25% blockage of UV. The Champs event 42,000 years ago, Ed, just thought they wiped out a lot of plant life just due to the UV.
Yeah.
But this house is a 1/10 of an acre. It's scaled in what I call a Gervais unit because the Gervais family in Pasadena, California, actually grew all their food except the grain products on the 1/10 of an acre in the backyard. They presently do, and they were feeding a family of 4 until their father passed. So there's 3 adults that live there today that are making a living from and selling off of that property. So this is good. Now, Afif added a little conservatory in here that is kind of a beautiful add to this concept. So this was my looking down on it, you know, floor plan, and that's hers. So she's an architect. She took what I'd come up with and showed it a lot more beautiful. This is the Earth version, and this version has a garage all the way in the back underneath. But I said, hey, people might choose to do that, but that's to me, a long driveway is wasting a lot of space. So she also drew it the other way. This is the living. So that's the basement. That's the bedroom level, and this is on top of that. So you're growing on your roof basically, and that's the conservatory. Open for the conservatory. You can see that's the conservatory down here. She's got growing on the same level the living space is in. But I had that outside. I had this being open to the outside here, but you can do it either way. And you don't actually have to have the basement, but it gives you a lot more. So that's just kind of what she's drawn there, Ed. Look at that.
That looks very nice. Then.
Yeah, isn't that beautiful? I mean, it could be a really beautiful thing. And that's just kind of the engineering model of it. So that's a picture of a conservatory. I kind of like that idea with the big fern plants. That looks like what you ought to find on Venus, right? But literally, you could have this inside of a home in Alaska or on a glacier. Put it on skids. So, yeah, that's kind of. Let me stop that share. It's just some of the stuff that I'm working on to try to come up with better ways for us to be more resilient in our society. If you had a home you could live in, make a living out of, and grow all your food out of, you'd be very independent. If we have more structures like that, we could be a lot more resilient as a society. You would be able to build a lot of thermal mass. You don't have to spend all the energy to heat and cool the homes. You could just small amount of solar collectors or wind would generate just about all the electrical power you could possibly need. You could collect your water off the roof of the house. It's a lot more roof area than is used for the water collection in the earthships, a lot more growing area than is used in the earthships, which are in Taos, New Mexico. So this gives you a huge step up in resiliency. I mean, Ed, you wouldn't even need utilities. You wouldn't need distributed systems, power grid. You could do everything you need out of that home anywhere you put it.
Mhm.
With that kind of thermal mass, I would submit you could live in Alaska, Mars, and I've got a Martian concept for that. And there's a simulation of that too, Ed. But so anyway, Ed's a diorama builder. He's built some really beautiful dioramas. In fact, Ed and I did a lunar base model in my basement when I lived at Fort Greely, Alaska. Lunar mine.
Well, I tend to make a model of just about everything before I build it. For instance, I've got a raised bed garden out in my backyard here. I built a desk model of it first. And building the model of it did in fact change the design.
Oh yeah.
So you can make I like to make models because it allows me to make my mistakes cheaply and quickly and not have the same mistakes in the big one. And that works.
Yeah. One thing Ed did is he built a living room, a room that's alive from willow trees and in his backyard.
Well, for instance, I'd like folks to do this. Go to the internet and look up Willow Domes images. Willow Domes images. Enter. And you will be flabbergasted at what you see. Some of these things cover 2 or 3 acres. Others quite small. The one I did in my backyard was 30 feet across, and I just took 30 willow switches and planted them in a circle, leaving space wide enough for my riding mower to go in through it. And within about 3 or 4 years, I had this great big dome, 30 feet in diameter, about 20 feet tall, and beautiful little place for a picnic, and you keep the sun off you in the summer. And it's self-maintaining. It's just beautiful. Willow Domes images. Do look it up.
All right. So I might do another little quick screen share here, Ed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, let's go back if I still got that open. Why does that show open in 2 spots? That's odd. So you see it?
Which one are you looking at?
Do you see my PowerPoint presentation?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to skip through a few slides down in here.
Mm-hmm.
This is the Martian version. That's inside of it. Now I got my picture that I showed you kind of pasted up in here, but this is inside of a simulation.
Mm-hmm. Geodesic structure.
Yeah. So now this one's actually 30 meters across. What you need for the 1/10 of an acre scale, this is intended for a larger scale. This is more of a community scale one. For a 1/10 of an acre scale, you would only need it to be about 75, 76 foot in diameter.
Mm-hmm.
So that's quite a bit different. Stop that share. All right, if I can find my cursor, there we go. Hello. All righty. So Ed's been quite involved in a lot of different projects. He's quite a hard, dedicated worker. I've got utmost respect for him. And what are you doing right now, Ed? What's your primary involvement these days?
Well, right now I'm working with Kepler Space Institute. I'm one of the founders and the major funders of Kepler. We're in our 3rd semester of teaching internationally. We're teaching out of Florida through Florida Department of Education. And we have about 25, I think, courses going right now. We have a number of professors all over the world, and we're teaching on the internet, so that we're teaching in and from Australia, the United States, Canada, England, various places. So we have a lot of really good people. One of our professors, Ed White, who wrote
Overview Effect.
The Overview Effect, interviews with various astronauts. I suggested to him that he write another Overview Effect with interviews of all the kids who've gone to space camp. I think that would be kind of cool.
In case anybody don't know, the Overview Effect is the idea that these astronauts, when they get to space, are just overcome by seeing no borders.
Mm-hmm.
We're really all one world.
But if you go to the internet and look up Kepler Space Institute, and it'll come up.
Ed, show us your bolo there. Did you make that?
What am I wearing today?
You're wearing the earth.
This is a little earth bolo. I don't know if we can see that there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you make that one?
No, well, it was a bolo tie when I bought it, but I'll make a bolo tie of anything that stands still long enough for me to work on it. I lots of them made out of crystals and gems and ivory and all kinds of things, bone, all kinds of
I've
things.
seen many. You've been wearing bolo ties ever since I've known you, and you've been making all kind of stuff. So I was curious. Ed's a very interesting individual. I think highly of him. Our friendship goes back a long time now, and so I hope we can stick together and get our society moving in a more positive direction.
Well, I would like to recommend people take a look at Kepler Space Institute because you'll find some good courses there.
All right.
Taught by very good people.
Maybe I should have made this a video for Galactic Gregs.
There we go.
So we'll do more in the future. I got to get my speakers worked on here, guys. I guess I got to buy a new pair. So sorry if the speakers have caused a consternation and with this video, but I'll get Ed back on here, and we'll do some more in the future. Ed,
Always have
the video now. We can chat for a moment after. So I'm just for the purposes of the people watching, I'm gonna say thank you. Thank you for watching. Y'all have an awesome weekend. Goodbye.